made their way to Egypt. They had traveled 400 miles from their home in Canaan. Now, they were leaving their home because there was a rumor, how powerful rumors are. Sometimes, you know, the rumor, you ever heard the rumor mill? I look at somebody that's at the mill, and there's a bunch of rumors in there, and you're just putting it together, mixing it all up. And sometimes the rumor's true, sometimes the rumor's not true. But someone heard that there was food in Egypt. And there was a famine that these 10 men, these men that were lean, they weren't eating the way that they were always eating. They didn't get the big raise like we heard this morning. But they were heading into Egypt because where Egypt was at the time is where famine was not. And so when they got to Egypt, their dad, so to speak, Jacob says, "Hey boys, I want you to go to Egypt. I want you to get some food, or we're gonna die." Basically, it was that kind of journey. And so this journey that they were on, these 10 men, so to speak, it was on a journey that would foster hope for home. And at the closest that they got to Egypt, they started seeing signs of prosperity. Remember, they were in a land that was in famine. They were going to a land that had plenty. And on the road from where they were to where they needed to be, somewhere along that road, they began to see signs of plenty. So they didn't have the food at home. They didn't have the grain. They didn't have the meat. They didn't have those things. But walk with me down on this journey. As they were going to Egypt at their father's request, they started seeing things that they hadn't seen in a while. And I can imagine while they were on that road and on that way, they started to be encouraged by what they were seeing. These were 10 lean men that were trying to find food in a famine time, and Egypt was the only place that they would find it. Now, these same 10 men that were lean, now these same 10 men are the wicked men that made their way into Egypt. These are the same 10 men that sold their brother Joseph into slavery. They had shown little mercy towards him. They had ignored his pitiful cries. They had shut their hearts to the hurt that was in their father. You remember the story. It was, hey, I'm having dreams, and in these dreams we're seeing that Joseph is saying, hey, I'm having these dreams, and my family is kneeling down before me where they sold him off into slavery. You know the story. I won't get all into it. But these same 10 wicked men that listened to their father to go to Egypt were the same men that realized at some point they were going to be reconnected with their brother that now was the governor of the land. Now think about it for just a moment. You have the family in a famine land, and you have the man that was sold into slavery, went to Potiphar's house, going through all of the storm and the turmoil that they went through. He went through only to find himself elevated by the Lord in a place of leadership that would prepare Egypt to get through the famine that the whole other country that was going through. And so here's the men, the 10 men, the brothers, so to speak, that sold him into slavery. These were the same men that would look at their brother and their brother Joseph, and Joseph would look down on them as I'm the governor. He would look at his brothers and realize very quickly, these are the same guys that sold me into slavery. But yet Joseph was put into a position to oversee the country, and so he would have visions, and he would get Egypt ready for the famine that was getting ready to come. And so here you have the 10 men and the 10 brothers, if you will, and they would come into the land, and there was a beautiful scenario or story that would happen there, that the tears that would come from Joseph's face as he would look down at his brothers, and he would remember the harm that his brothers did on him. Imagine this for just a moment. Someone that you've done wrong, or someone that's done you wrong, puts you into timeout, so to speak, puts you into another country where all you know is what the Lord is talking to you about. And so now you're in a place of leadership, and you're helping this country, this Egypt, get through this famine. And now you're looking at your brothers, and you're realizing very quickly all the past starts rushing back to you really quickly. I don't know how long Joseph was in this Egypt land and how far away he was, or how long he was away from his brothers. But I would imagine when he got back to his brothers and he saw his brothers, I would imagine that all of those hurtful things started rushing back to him. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been kind of removed from the hurt, the bad news, the situation, but something just seems to trigger it just for a moment? Have you been there? You remember what happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but something triggers it. Maybe it's a song that you listen to on the radio. Maybe it's a Facebook post that you see. Maybe it's a situation that you're dealing with, and you wake up in the middle of the night. But here's the thing about Joseph. He could have taken some quick, swift action and got rid of his brothers, but what is the first thing that he did? He put his arms around his brothers, and he wept because of what had happened. He didn't have that instinct that probably I would have. Hey, you done me wrong, I'm going to do you wrong. He didn't have that kind of thing in his spirit. What he did is he put his arms around his brother. The governor there in the governor's house recognized his brothers, and he began to have an understanding with his eyes, and now he realized all the hurt that happened in the past, all the confusion of all the things that's happened in my past. Now I realize why I'm going through what I'm going through. You see, I want to just remind us here. Here we have Joseph. Joseph, he is the governor. He's in the governor's house. He is the one that is giving away the food. He has prepared for the famine when his own family did not even know how to prepare for the famine. But God used an awful, God-awful circumstance in Joseph's life to prepare him to be a blessing for somebody else's life. You may not know what you're going through right now, and it may be a bad situation that you're feeling, but don't forget this for just a moment. If you feel like you're the brothers that are going into a place where you're trying to find God, don't forget for a minute that Joseph was already there waiting for his brothers. He didn't know the brothers were going to show up, but when his brothers showed up, he realized, now I have an understanding why God put me in this situation, so that I can not only bless this country, but I can also bless my family that's coming in. What you're going through right now may be a terrible thing, but God has already showed up to where you are and where you're going, and when you get to where you're going, he's already there, and he's going to be there for what you need. Amen. When we get our facilities, I promise you, I'll put you some monitors up here, so I won't be so loud out there. That if you ever come to speak, you understand that if you can't hear yourself, you naturally try to get louder. So I apologize about that. But there was a dream that was given to Joseph many years before his family started bowing down before him. He saw the dream. He saw the bowing down, but there was some time before that dream would come to reality. Joseph had to be revealed, and he had to say, "Hey, listen," and I want to tell this to somebody here today. Genesis 50:20. You meant this thing for evil, but God worked it for my good. You see, here is Joseph going through a very dark time in his life, being sold out from his family into Potiphar's house, being lied upon, being put in prison, thought he was going to die. God began to continue to give him dreams and show him things until God put him into a place where he could oversee a country and oversee a city, and to prepare that city for a famine that was coming. But what God was trying to not only show Joseph, but he was also trying to show his family, is that before his family could ever get to the place where famine would meet plenty, God had to use a terrible situation in Joseph's life and put him in a bad situation, so that when the family would come in, Joseph could look at his family and say, I'm going to give you everything that you need. You may be going through bad things today, but God is already in your tomorrow. He already knows what you're going to go through. He already knows the situation that you're going to face weeks from now. What the enemy meant for your bad, God has already working it for your good. You're worried about the past. Put the past behind you as much as you can. You're concerned about the present. Let me tell you, my God is everywhere at the same time. So whenever I am arriving in the present, he is already here working for my good. And if I'm concerned about the future and what's going to happen in my future, let me tell you, there is a Joseph that has already gone to the future, preparing the way so that when you get to the place where you need an answer from God, God is already there to give you your answer when you get there. God saw the famine coming, and he saw a person that could help work it out. In Genesis 45:7, Joseph said this, he sent me on ahead. In other words, what you're going through right now that may be a little bit harmful, maybe to you, you feel like maybe something's going wrong with you. I'm going through these things. Let me tell you, God is preparing you for something great down the road. You may not understand why God is allowing you to go through what you're going through, but let me tell you, just like like Joseph going through Potiphar's situation, just like Joseph being sold off to the traveling caravan, being left from his home. God knew what was going on in Joseph's life. God knew what he was going through. He knew the famine that would come. And God says, I'm going to use you, Joseph, in the direst times of your life, and I'm going to set you up, and I'm going to use you in a way that you've never been used before. So when you think about it for just a moment, if you're going through something that you don't understand, just help me understand this with me. God is trying to use you in your moment maybe of insecurity, in your moment of doubt, in your moment of frustration, in your moment I just don't understand. What you don't see is what God is trying to do with your life years from now. What you don't see is how God is trying to elevate you years from now, or months from now, or weeks from now. What happens in your life today is not meant, the enemy says, is to break you. What the enemy tries to do in our life is to bend us and break us. But let me tell you what God is trying to say. I'm going to take that thing that seems to be evil in your life, and I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to make something great out of it. You say, Pastor, you don't know the dark thoughts that I have in night. God can take those dark thoughts and turn them around and make light out of it. You don't understand, Pastor. I'm going through financial trouble. It just takes a little bit of a prayer and a little bit of faith, and he can take a financial situation and turn it around and give you a raise like you've never had before. God knows how. He's already there before you even get to the situation, before you even get to the problem. He's already been there. He already has the answer, and he's just waiting for you to show up with a little bit of faith and say, God, I believe. God, I trust. God, I'm going to do my part. Man, sometimes we are present-bound thinkers. I don't know about you, but we are present-bound thinkers. Sometimes we think in the past, and we think about maybe God has been good to us like we're doing in this 30 days of prayer and fasting. It's a reminder of what God is doing. Next Sunday, do not miss next Sunday when we're taking communion together. God's going to do some great things there. But let me just say, if God provided for you yesterday, he can provide for you today. If you're thinking today, I've got a need, or today there's uncertainty, or today I've got issues that I don't know how to get out of, if God provided for you yesterday, he can provide for you today. And if you're thinking about the future and you're wondering about your life and you feel like there may be no hope, but Pastor, you don't know I'm a good Christian. Pastor, I've got the faith as a grain of a mustard seed. But let me tell you, if you're flat on your bed somewhere and you're dealing with some situations, it's going to tap your faith. But let me tell you, if it taps your faith and you realize and hopefully remember this message today, if you're somewhere down the road in your future, let me just tell you, if you ever get to the place where it feels like hope is slipping out of your hands, where things are going so wrong and so awry, don't think about that right now. Don't think about the things that could be and all the bad things that could be. Remember this, whatever God has done in your life yesterday, he will do it today and he will do it tomorrow. He is a God that lives in the past, he lives today, and he lives in your future. He is already there. I don't know what we're going through today. Some pastors you may have seen in the past, maybe they're like some of those magicians. They just do this huckamo-shy type of a thing, and they know exactly what you're going through. I don't know what you're going through unless you've brought it to me. But let me tell you, if you want to bring it to me, let me tell you, bring it to the Lord first. You take it to him in prayer, and you say, God, I need some answers on this. I got to have help here. You may be thinking right now, I'm lost maybe in the future thoughts where there seems to be no hope for today. So I'm thinking about the future and wondering if there will be a better day in the future. But let me tell you, God is already with you today, and he will be with you tomorrow, and in your future of uncertainty, he is already there. I like the thought of tomorrow, by the way. It's called vision. The thought of tomorrow is called vision. Y'all want the pastor to cast vision. We're going to do that in February. I'm going to cast vision for our church for this year, or this year, throughout this year. I'm going to be talking about united around purpose. We have to have purpose if we're going to be used in the kingdom of God, and everybody has purpose no matter your past. Let me repeat that. No matter what your past is, God has a purpose for you today and a future for you. But when we come together and we talk about vision, what's your vision for your life? What's your vision for your family's life? How are you thinking about the God that is already there? Where is it that God needs to be in your life? Where is it that God needs to be in your family's life? Vision. It's easy if you think about Joseph. You think about his brethren. These are the 10 evil men that I were talking about. You can think and say, well, my word, we can have some sympathy, or maybe we can empathize with them for just a little bit. But these men, I'm talking about the brethren, Joseph's brethren, these men saw the famine. They had heard the cries of their wives and their children. They had seen the quiet desperation of their father's face. They were locked up into hurt and agony of the present. That's why they had to get out of where they were to go find something. Let me just say here real quick, some of life's greatest mistakes are made when we solely focus on the present. When we see the circumstances that we're dealing with and we let them dictate what we should do. If I look at the present situation and I solely focus on the present, I lose sight of what God may have for me in the future. If I'm solely looking at what's happening right now in the present, and if the present is not good, then I can let that situation dictate what I should do. Peter saw the winds and the waves. They were boisterous. When he got his eyes off Jesus, what happened? He began to sink like a sinking ship. The priest and the Levites, or the Levite, they were both preoccupied so much with the present that they passed the wounded man on the side of the road. Paul tells us today, and I want to remind us that Paul says the present cannot separate us from God's love. But let me tell you what it can do. It can pull us away for God's plan. Our present focus may not necessarily separate us from God's love, but our present focus can pull us away from God's plan. That's why you got to have vision for your life. That's why if it's not working the way you want to work it and the way it should be working, you need to remember God is already where you are. And when you take a step of faith and you don't see that He's there and you don't physically see the manifestation, if you will, of His presence where He is, you have to remember God is already there. When I take 2 steps and 3 steps and 5 steps of faith, God is already down that road as I'm taking those steps. While we are living in the present and dealing with all the things that we're dealing with, God is already working in our future. Let me tell you, God's grace comes to us first when we respond to Him in faith. We could probably say that God's grace is moving in advance of our steps to provide, or our steps to provide for the needs that we have. Whatever the future is that God is working in your life, you may not see it today as a beneficial thing. But let me remind us today, He is not designing traps for you down the road. He's not manufacturing random heartaches for you down the road if you're experiencing this right now. He's not authorizing temptations that'll take you off the trail that you're supposed to be on. He's in Egypt of our future, and He's already at work. He's already preparing for the famine that you may be feeling. He's already preparing for the Egypt for you to go to receive what you need to receive. He's working for your good, no matter you may not know it or not. He is working for your good. But Pastor, the path that I'm on is it's not very beneficial to me right now. The path that I'm on is filled with heartaches. The path that I'm on is tempting the core of my faith. The path that I'm on is tempting me in ways that I never thought that I would ever be tempted. Remember, God did not design this path for you to be tempted in such a way that you would lose your faith in Him. What He's trying to show you is even in our darkest time, God is going to show us how He can use us and how we can see Him when we're going through difficult things. Well, Pastor, why don't you prove it to me just a moment? Psalms 139, whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. See, He's there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand, which means the right hand of power, thy right hand shall hold me. There is no place that you can go that he has not already been there. There is no depth that you can go in your emotional state that he is not already there waiting for you. There's no place that you can go to that feels such an absence of his presence that you can go to that he's not already there. There's no place that you can go to where you feel all alone and you feel like nobody understands you and nobody cares. There's no place like that that you can go to that he is not already there waiting for you. He is already there. We can put on our facades. We can put on our faces and say, my word, all things are good, all things are right. We can look at those things and we can say, hey, it's all going to be good. But under the veil, what's really going on? Under the veil, what are you really seeing? Under the veil where nobody can see what's really going on in our lives, what's really going on in our minds, what's really happening in our lives right now. Wherever you are mentally, financially, spiritually, whatever it is, physically, wherever you are and how bad it may be, God is already there. He's already there. Well, how do you know? The Bible says God is everywhere, meaning that time means nothing to him. He's everywhere at all times. He's in our past, he's in our present, he's in our future, all at the same time. How much knowledge is that he knows about us? Pastor, you don't know how hard it's been for me, the hurt that's deep within me because of people. I'm going to just tell us real quick, whenever you are hurting, the place not to go is a very public forum to put out your hurts. That's not the remedy. Getting people to like you because of what's going on in your life is not the remedy. It's not going to solve the core problem that you're dealing with, even if it's been because of somebody else. A quick post on Instagram or social media and venting out your problems and your concerns and all the things that you think have been done wrong to you is not going to solve your problem. It's not going to bring you more peace. It's not going to give you what you need. What we have to do is go to the Lord in prayer and say, God, I need you. And guess what? He's already there. When you kneel down and pray and you don't have it together and you're trying to figure out how it's all going to work, he's already there. He's already. The lady at the well, when he showed up, she was trying not to have a visitor. But when she showed up, Jesus was already there. And when she got to the well and the Lord had a conversation with her and said, I'm going to give you living water. Let me just pause for just a moment and say, the spiritual situation that you're in, is it living water, stirred water, or is it stale water? Because if it's stale water, you haven't been renewed, revived in a while, you need to have your spirit renewed and revived. You need to have that living water re-poured back into your spirit. If it's been a while since you've spoken a heavenly language, you need to be refilled, if you want to call it that. Have him add to you. Let that cup run over with living water. He was already there at the well before the lady got to the well. And when the lady left the well, as you've heard me preach before, she left a different way than she showed up. She began to be a missionary when you had a lady that was doing all kinds of bad things. What happened? He was already there. She had issues, but he was already there. He stood, amen, there ready. God already knew when the Ethiopian eunuch, he already knew what the Ethiopian eunuch needed. He saw the need for baptism, and this is what the man needed. And you look in Scripture in Acts chapter 8, you find out that God provided a water that laid nearby. How is that? God said there was a man that needs baptism. I'm going to create the solution for what that man needs. Jesus was already there, and the water was already there when there was a need. Woo, my God. I could preach this for an hour. I won't do that to you, by the way. I won't. Y'all will walk out. I'll be preaching by myself. I'll be preaching to the camera. When there's a need, he's already there. She was ready to die, church. She was ready to die. Her food and water had run out. Her sustenance was gone. She was about to lose everything, not only her son, but she was about to lose her own life as she was in a desert place, didn't know how she was going to get out. But the Bible tells us she opened up her eyes. And when she opened up her eyes, as again you've heard me preach before, she saw a well of water springing up before her. How is it that in a desert, dry, barren place where there is no water and there is a need from a child of God, sometimes we have to first open our eyes. What I mean by that is open our eyes of faith and say, I don't maybe see anything going on, but I'm going to believe that God is going to provide what I need in the moment. Let me tell you, God was already there. He opened up the spring of water, and the lady that needed it the most, she opened up her eyes and she saw what God was about to do. I'm telling you, God's already there. No matter what you're going through, He's already been there. My word, Jesus, our great high priest, has gone before us and opened up a new and a living way. He knows. My word, in the Old Testament, you know the story. The priests had to get together. They had to get the goats. They had to get the calves together. They had their burnt offerings. They had their sacrificial offering. And we know that there are two of them, two of those goats. And one of those, the Bible teaches us, and the Bible tells us that there was a ritual. And in the ritual, what they did is they said, I'm going to have this sacred urn, so to speak. And they put these tablets. The Bible says they put tablets in there. One said Jehovah, and the other one meant the devil or anything that was bad. And so what they would do is they take those two goats, one on each side, and they would call out, and they reach their hand into that pot, and they would that sacred pot, and they pull out. And if one said Jehovah, they'd put it on the right side, and the one that meant the devil, they put it on the other side. The one that said Jehovah was the one that went to the sacrifice. The one that meant the devil, the priest would put his hands on that man or on that sacrifice, and they would let that goat leave. And you might ask yourself the question, how is it that there's a goat that's going to be sacrificed, which is a type of Jesus Christ? And how is it there's a goat that's going to leave? It's to remind the people that I don't like sin, and I'm going to drive sin out as far as I can see it. Church of God, when there's a sacrifice, He's showing us, I don't like sin, and I want you to see sin is going to go back where it started. Jesus is that sacrifice for you and I today. He is and has gone before us and is opening a new and a living way. How, if you ask yourself the question, how do I get out of here? How, but Peter, do I get out of this iron gate that's in front of me, that's separating me from my beloved? How is it that I'm going to get out of this gate that I'm in, that I'm bound up in? The Bible tells us in Acts 12:1, God was already there. And the doors opened up and the gates swung open and that man walked out free. I'll close with this. The three Hebrew children will find the fourth man in the fire. Daniel will find the lion taming faith in the den. God has power to provide. He has power to heal. He has power to save. He has power to deliver. He has power to take what was lost and to make it found. But where it's going to be is there. Sometimes you just have to, like the prophet, get to where there is. And there is so important. There could be the church where the miracle happens. There could be in 30 days of prayer and fasting where God meets you like you've never been met before. Maybe it's where you get away from work a little bit and you get alone with God and you start talking to God. Maybe it's there where God gets you and He says, I've already been where you are. I'm right where you are. I'm with you. I'm behind you 100%. I'm going to help you. Maybe it's a month or 2 or 3 months down the road when you're about to go through something that you don't understand and don't know how to deal with it. What do I do? Understand that God is already there. And when I go through things months from now, He's already there. And when I'm dealing with things in my past that I don't understand, He was already there. Thus, it's with His stripes that you and I are healed. Peter tells us again, His stripes, by His stripes, you were healed. I've read these scriptures all the time. I was wondering why in the world they would put these scriptures like this. But God takes the present and He puts it into your past. If you have past hurt, He's showing us that His healing is not only for you today, but His healing is for your past. Pastor, I've been hurt. I've been wounded. I've been cut. Not physically. I've been hurt. God, these wounds will not close. These wounds will not. It's festering up. I keep scratching them off. I want to tell you, the source of your pain, He has already went to the whipping post for it way back in your past. And what does that mean? That means if He healed me back into the past, I can take it today and say, Lord, you've already healed me from my past, from the situation I'm dealing with in my past, and I take that healing today, and Lord, I'm going to take a step of faith. I've seen it when somebody has been bound with smoking, and the Lord told the man of God to put some oil on the finger and put it on his tongue, and it delivered him instantly of that. I believe in all of that. I understand all of it. But before all of that needs to happen, there's something that, let me just put it this way. Before all of that can happen to you, there has to be something that happens within you. Because if God provides you a miracle and there's no change within you, then all He is just a transaction to you. All He is just give me what you want. I just need what I need, and I'm going to move on. God does not want a transactional relationship. He wants to have intimacy relationship with you. What does that mean? He wants you to tell Him your deepest, darkest secrets. He wants you to reveal to Him your heart as black as it may be. Why? He's already there. You don't know what I've done. He's already there. I've messed up. He's already there. I've cursed. He's already there. I've done things you wouldn't believe. He's already there. I've said things I shouldn't say. He's already there. I've got this bad report. He's already there with you. I'm on the brink of a mental meltdown. He's already there. You have no idea the hurt inside of me. He's already there. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. He's already there. Joseph, you had to go through it. Joseph, you had to go through it. Deceived, abandoned, confused, lied on. You had to go through all of that, but God was trying to put you into a place to minister to others. Joseph, you were sold into slavery. You were lied upon, but you stayed true to the Lord because He was already there.